Hello, this is Chef Janie Pendleton. Today I'm going to be making up a new recipe for banana pumpkin bread. First thing you want to do is you want to take your browning bananas and you want to peel them and just drop them into a bowl. And then of course we have our leftover pumpkin, so I'm just going to add this to my bananas. Alright, now I've just blended this together on a stir setting until the bananas are nice and smooth. You can also use a potato masher to mash the bananas. I'm going to add 3/4 of a cup of white sugar. I'm going to add a cup of packed brown sugar. Let's drop this in there, and then that will drop in there. There we go. I'm going to run this for about 30 seconds. Now I'm just going to add 3 eggs. Okay, I've added my 3 eggs. And again, I'm just going to blend this for about 30 seconds. I've turned my machine back down to stir, and now I'm just going to add another 3/4 of a cup of packed brown sugar. So that's a total of 1 3/4 cup of packed brown sugar in all. And I'm going to blend this until the sugar is somewhat dissolved. Okay, now to my mix, I'm going to add about a teaspoon of salt. There we go. I'm going to add about 1/4 of a cup to 1/3 of a cup of apple cider. And I'm going to add about a teaspoon of pure vanilla. I'm going to add about 1/4 of a block of cream cheese. I'm going to use 2 tablespoons of my favorite maple syrup. And I'm just going to add 2 tablespoons of Crisco vegetable oil. You know what, I'm going to make it 3. Now to 4 cups of all-purpose flour, I am going to add 4 teaspoons of baking soda and 1 heaping tablespoon of baking powder. And this is just a Clever Girl baking powder. Just a little bit more than that. That wasn't quite heaping enough for me. There we go. So that was equivalent about a tablespoon and a half of baking powder, and then again 4 teaspoons of baking soda to 4 cups of flour, and another 1/2 teaspoon of salt. Now we're just going to blend this dry ingredients here together, and now we're going to add our spices. We need 2 tablespoons of cinnamon. We need 1/2 teaspoon of ground nutmeg and a couple of dashes of ground ginger. And then again, we're just going to blend this into our dry ingredients. Okay, now we're going to add our mixed dry ingredients into our liquid mixture, our pumpkin mixture. We're just going to add this a cup at a time. Be sure and use your splatter guard, because especially if you're going gluten-free with this, because the flours are going to get quite messy if you're not careful. And we're just going to keep adding this until we get the consistency of our sweet bread, the same consistency that I showed you in our pumpkin bread video. We want this to cling to the spatula. Okay, so turn that up. Take a look at what we have. Now I'm just going to stop this for a minute, and we're going to scrape the sides of the bowl. We're going to make sure that we have all this flour mixed in. Okay, because I added 2 more cups of flour to this, I'm going to go ahead and add in 2 more teaspoons of baking soda. A teaspoon per cup is usually the rule of thumb. So 2 cups, 2 teaspoons. And I'm not going to add in any more baking powder this time. I think this will be fine. So it ended up being 6 3/4 cups of flour, just like it was for my pumpkin bread. So I guess that's a new rule of thumb, even if you add bananas and less pumpkin. Now we're just going to mix this for about 1 minute, and we're going to stop it in 30 seconds, and we're going to scrape the sides of the bowl and run it another 30 seconds. And that will be it. Okay, I just want to show you a sweetbread consistency. This should cling to your spatula or plastic spoon. Like a thick cake batter. Very thick cake batter. Okay, now that I have this at the consistency that I like, I'm going to do something a little bit crazy here. I love these Heath English toffee bits, and I'm going to sprinkle just a few of those in there. It'll sweeten it up a little bit, give it a little bit of crunch, a little bit of a caramel flavor. You know, this is Halloween next week. There's no reason not to enjoy a little bit of the apple caramel taste to our bread. There we go. And for those who can have it, add about a cup of semi-sweet chocolate chips or two in here. Just a cup or two of the semi-sweet chocolate chips, and I'll go ahead and add some. Trust me, I'm brave. There we go. Won't be able to eat a very large piece of this bread, but it'll be sweet, but it'll be good. So we have the bananas and the pumpkin and the toffee and the chocolate and the apple cider. Wow, I can't think of anything else. And the syrup, the maple syrup. A lot of flavors in here. Okay, so let's just pour this into some prepared bread pans. Okay, so now we have greased and floured 2 glass bread pans. And then of course it's just like with the pumpkin bread. I wouldn't make this if I didn't make some for friends. So I greased and floured a few of these little loaf pans to hand out to friends as well. Now I'm just going to push these together so we don't get much drippage. Don't want to waste any of this good stuff. Give this one more stir, and then we're going to fill our pans. Okay, be sure and fill up your bread pans evenly so that they will bake at the same rate. And the same thing for your smaller loaf pans. Now remember, a smaller loaf of bread will end up being drier than a larger loaf of bread. That's why I added the extra oil, just to be sure that these were a little bit more moist. Now I'm going to bake my bread at 350 degrees. The small ones for 25 to 28 minutes, and the large ones for about an hour. But I'm going to set the timer for about 45 to 50 minutes, and I'm going to start checking on them. If they seem like they're not getting done, just cover them up towards the end of baking with foil, and just continue to bake until they're done. A knife or a fork or something inserted in the center should come out clean. Or if you do the press test, this should bounce back. Okay, we're going to set our timer for 26 minutes, and then we'll start checking on our smaller loaves. And you can see here that I have the larger loaves in with the smaller loaves. And then also I put a cookie sheet under here. The reason being is the last time I made this, it dripped. Anyway, this is Chef Janie, and I will be back in a few minutes to pull our bread from the oven. Okay, we've removed the small loaves from the oven, as you can see. They bounce back nicely. They're done. And we're just going to add another 25 minutes onto our baking time for the larger loaves. And I've also covered the larger loaves loosely with foil. Okay, when these come out of the oven, I'm just going to brush them with butter, just regular butter. We've buttered our loaves. Then what we want to do is we want to line the countertop with some foil. And on top of that, we want to set a cookie sheet or a baking rack. And then, and these right here just pop right out after about 2 or 3 minutes of cooling. And again, you can see they're nice dark cinnamon and pumpkin rich loaves. Oh, you can smell the banana in them as well. They smell really good. Now I'm just going to mix some powdered sugar with just a little bit of cool water. Doesn't take much. And we're just going to make a thin glaze. Okay, that looks really good. And then we're just going to take this and we're just going to drizzle this over the top of our banana pumpkin bread. Okay, and here are our mini loaves, all nice and frosted. You can see we let the frosting run down the sides. Makes for a quite attractive gift, really. And the ladies and gents at work will just love you for this. This is Chef Janie Pendleton. Enjoy.